When the closure was announced, we were devastated out there. The day it was announced, I could see the fear in the people's eyes, the uncertainty, the anger. Some people just couldn't even speak. It was real devastating for us all. About 3 weeks after that, Jason spoke to me and he said, "What do you think about getting a co-op up and going?" And I thought, well, it's worth a discussion, but I think it's beyond us. We met in Melbourne, and that's the first time that we met Les and Tony and a few others, and we sat down and had a discussion and walked out, and I just thought, this is beyond us. We can't do this. We're very good at putting sauce in bottles, and that's the end of our expertise, I believed, out there. We decided to form a committee, and now I believe it's going to fly. We can get this up and going. We have the right people running it. It's also given the people at Heinz hope. You know, we are now well knowledged and skilled. We work with worldwide practices and skills, and we have the knowledge to do it. And it's fantastic to have the opportunity to work in the field that we've got the knowledge and skills in. None of us want to shift away or relocate to find work. This is our home, our families are here, and our kids are here. We don't want to move, we just want to keep doing what we're good at. So this co-op is going to give great hope for Girgarre. The local schools, the local sporting clubs are all going to benefit. So this co-op is the lifeline for our workers at the moment.
Together, 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 everyone. Together, together, come on, let's have some fun. We're all in this together, and we show that we are, we're all stars, and we see that we're all in this together, and it shows when we stand hand in hand, make our dreams come true.
Last week I was asked to attend a meeting to talk to come down and see what these guys were up to. And I can tell you, it was very, very impressive. They sat around, I got there at 10 o'clock, I think I left about 2:30, and the expertise around the table that these guys had was fantastic. They were able to speak on most subjects that took place, and I sat there in awe of what these guys were up to, how far they'd come. That was the most impressive part to me. In the last 2 to 3 months, how far these guys have progressed down the track to try and get this co-op up and going. Now, to me, there's one big thing that might be missing, and it's you guys out there. We need to support these guys. We need to be putting our front foot forward. I think on the board in there's a picture. Could this be you? Maybe it should be you.
But we were actually allocated $30,000 towards a feasibility study. The feasibility study is very important to the business because obviously we have to be able to justify to banks and to governments and probably even to our clients that in fact we can afford to go ahead with it.
I wanted to talk just for a couple of minutes about the reopening of 2 food manufacturing plants in regional Victoria with which I was involved. One was a factory at Nil, it was Greens Foods, and the second was the Nestle confectionery factory over in Maryborough. In both cases, the factories were owned by larger companies. They were at one point both the biggest employers in town, and in Nestle's case, they relocated to New Zealand, and in Greens Foods' case in Nil, they relocated to manufacturing to Sydney. The comparisons with Girgarre are quite strong. The Nil factory was closed for about 1.5 years, and that's now reopened and is now employing about 8 or 10 people and growing nicely. With the Maryborough factory, it had been empty for just about 9 years. There was one failed attempt to reopen it in 2007, and it's now reopened about 4 or 5 months ago. The lesson for Girgarre is that the reopening of the Nil factory was based on a sound feasibility study and business plan, which showed that the business was viable. With Borough, with the people who purchased the factory in 2007, they spent about $4 million upgrading it. They had great ideas, but they didn't have a business plan, and it failed after about 6 months, and the investors lost everything. The new business which has moved in has relocated from Melbourne. They've got a solid business plan and feasibility study, which was backed by their bankers. That factory, when Nestle owned it, employed about 150 people, and they expect to be back up to that number within about 12 months. So it can be done, and I'm sure this one can be also.
In building a feasibility plan, what we need to make sure is that we're not going to be leapt over by new technology, and then what is left in the plant is usable, manageable, functional, and can be optimised for whatever the best products are to be produced. So part of the feasibility plan is, one, identifying what can be made, then what profitabilities can come from that, what the yields are, what we can optimise out of it, what we need as staffing, and what is necessary to run with that. I'm one of those boring people who's had years and years of doing that, not just here in Australia, but globally as well. And this is going to be quite an interesting challenge in time.
What we have needed and what we will need is in fact to have the same level of support from governments that Heinz have had. We don't want any more than Heinz have had, but we want at least as much, because we think if taxpayers' money has gone into Heinz to this stage, there's no reason why it shouldn't be going into a co-op as well. That is Australian people's money being spent on Australians, and that seems to us to be the logic of what a taxation system is.
Everyone right now across the globe is talking food security. Guess what? We've got 7 billion people in the world now. Half of them are obese and half of them are starving. We've got East Timor, 30 minutes from Darwin. Half of the East Timor, Timor-Leste population are stunted and malnourished. You move into Indonesia next door. What are they obsessing about? Food security, how to grow enough rice in their country for their population, the 3rd or 4th biggest democracy on earth. We're in Australia amazing. We do magnificent food. We grow brilliant tomatoes. We grow magnificent fruit. Dairy product you'd die for. We can do brilliant cereals. We do great meats, and it's not contaminated with too many chemicals. It's green and lean and magnificent food product. And guess what? The world now is saying we're rich. We've got more middle class in China now than they've ever dreamed of having. What do they want? They want butter and beef. They want fruit. They want manufactured product. And guess what we can do in our part of the world? We've got the skilled people. Our Girgarre Heinz workers, as we've heard, didn't just put sauce in bottles, as we like to say modestly. Our Girgarre Heinz factory was a stunning factory, and it did beautiful product. And we grow magnificent stuff. We, in this part of the world, have got this challenge. We've got Les and his team who've got the skills. But more than that, they've got the courage and the heart. And that's what we need in this game, not just risk-taking, but it has to be risk-taking based on skills, knowledge, careful assessment with that business plan. And then we need people who love our part of the world, just as we've heard from the back of this truck, who want to live here. We've seen our little kids, our little students saying, we're all in this together. That's what it's about.
Thank you, Shaman.
Turn to the person next to you. If they're about the same size as you, I'd like you to actually just stand beside them and hold their hand. Starting now, how many times can you get the other person's hand to touch your side? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, there are anything you like, as long as you don't injure the other person, any way you can do it. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Stop now. What did you notice? How many times did you get it?
I didn't get it.
How many times did you get it?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Now Simon and I are going to demonstrate just another way of doing it. Counting from now 15 seconds. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Do I make my point? This is called cooperation. What we have in the food industry are growers and the food processors, traditionally arguing over prices and supplies and being in competition. You've got the trade unions and management. You've got the consumers and the retailers. But this is a food chain from paddock to plate. And what we've got to start to think in terms of is no longer competition between these links in a chain, but cooperation.
If we want to earn Australian wages, we have to pay Australian prices. If you want to pay developing country prices, then we need to earn their wages and we need to live in their conditions. Read your labels, talk to the shopkeepers, try something new, be surprised, but buy Australia. Thank you.